Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the shop. I wanted to talk to you today about what I believe is the most likely possibility for SHTF, the kind of SHTF that would send the United States of America back to, like, I don't know, the 1850s or something. Definitely pre-electricity. It might even send us back to the Stone Age, because many of the people that were alive in the 1850s actually had a basic understanding of of how to survive, right? They knew how to, chop wood, and they had wood stoves or fireplaces. Their homes were set up for basically surviving in a really rough, low-tech element, right? And harsh, extreme environments. We're not set up for that. Most people have forgotten those old ways, and even fewer have any knowledge that this is even coming. So for a lot of people, I would argue when this happens, it's going to jerk the rug out from underneath them in such a way that they're going to immediately freak out, panic, and get really violent. I mean, it's inevitable if this happens. But I wanted to make a video here, so I made a few notes. 72 hours after EMP or cyber attack takes down our grid completely. And I don't have a crystal ball, but I've read a lot of different books. I highly recommend a book called 1 Second After. I think the guy, I can't remember who wrote that book, but whoever wrote it, it's an excellent book. You should read it. If you can't read it or can't find it at the library, you can actually go on YouTube, and I'll provide a link down below, maybe in the description or in the first comment. I'll provide a link where you guys can go listen to the audiobook here on YouTube for free. And I recently re-listened to it again, because I read the book years ago, but listening to it kind of as I'm, puttering around out here in the shop and doing different things and tinkering and stuff like that has been really enlightening. And it's a great book to kind of give you a taste of what it might be like. Again, I have no crystal ball, and neither does the author that wrote that book, but you should go read it. But 72 hours after EMP or cyber attack. Now, I do think there are some minor differences. If it was a cyber attack, it would probably just affect our, critical infrastructure, our electrical grid, our water, anything like that. If you're in the city, your sewer, all that stuff is connected to the computer, believe it or not. So very few things are simple and easy to operate by, manpower now. So most of this stuff is automated and computerized to make our lives easier, and to where they don't have to hire as many people to take care of the facility, right? So I think that's going to be a big factor, is that if it's an EMP, everything is down. Your vehicle, your cell phone, all your home electronics, most likely. Although there is an argument out there that says that basically even a modern vehicle might still run after an EMP. It depends on line of sight. So if you're in, let's say, Kansas somewhere, in the middle of Kansas, because every plant I've ever seen, they basically detonate one right over the center of Kansas. And they claim that would take out 90% of our power grid, just one. 90% of our power grid would be offline from one EMP detonated over Kansas. So if you're in Kansas, directly underneath where the EMP is going to go off, or anywhere in the line of sight where that radiation could go straight into your vehicle's computer, then your car's not going to start. Your electronics are not going to work. Your cell phone's not going to work. And even if your cell phone did power up somehow, there's not going to be a tower for it to connect to. So we're talking about getting thrust back into the Stone Age, because most people don't know how to live like they lived in the 1850s, right? So it's going to be instant pandemonium. I would say EMP even worse, because people are going to realize that more suddenly. So let's talk about day one. What's going to happen on day one of EMP? Let's say an EMP, a single one, just goes off over Kansas and it knocks out 90% of our power grid. I think there'll be two groups of people. Group A will consist of people that many of them will assume it's just normal power outages, right? So people that are in their home, the power goes off. We all have power outages once in a while, just from weather events, or maybe they're doing some maintenance on the grid or whatever. That can happen. And most of us assume when that does happen that, within short order, within a short amount of time, they'll come and change that power line. Probably some drunk hit the telephone pole down the road, whatever. We'll try to logic ourselves into believing that it's probably just, business as usual, and power will be restored within a matter of hours or days, right? So most people will assume that, and they'll kind of put their head in the sand. They'll bury their head in the sand. They won't know what's going on. No broadcasts will be coming in on radio or TV or anything like that. They might start to think that that's a little strange, and maybe they'll start looking for answers at that point. But many of them that haven't even contemplated this possibility, they'll just be left in the dark, literally. They won't know what to do. Now, again, most people have at least experienced short-term power outages, so hopefully these people, the ones that are going to be like ostriches, hopefully they will at least have the ability to, light some candles up and stuff like this, and maybe have a few meals ready to eat that don't need, an electric range or anything like that to power them or to heat them up, right? So that's Group A. Group B, and especially if you see the blast, if you're somewhere, let's say you're out farming or something and you're in Kansas or somewhere where you can see the big flash of light in the sky, and you already know about a lot of this stuff, then you may automatically assume, oh my God, this is it, this is an EMP. And panic will set in instantly, even among the most prepared, even among the people, like myself, that have been looking for this to come for years and years. When it happens, panic is going to set in, and there will instantly be like runs on the banks, runs on, people will think in their ignorance that the US dollar that they have saved up in their savings account will be able to be, accessible, and you'll be able to get that money out and use it for bartering and trading. And maybe the first day or two, you might be able to, but very quickly people are going to realize that the US dollar is a promissory note. It has no intrinsic value on its own, other than maybe wiping your ass or lighting your wood stove or something like that, or lighting a barrel so you can stand around it and you and your family don't freeze to death. Because with all these global warming, people out there saying that, oh God, the earth's going to warm up 1 degree and it's going to kill everybody. What they never say is more people die every year freezing to death than they do in the heat. So yeah, it may be hot and uncomfortable, and some people do die in excessive heat waves, but the vast majority of people that die from exposure, they're dying from cold exposure, not hot exposure. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, panic is going to set in instantly, and there will be Group B, the ones that are more aware of what's going on. They'll be heading to the gas stations trying to fill up. They'll be heading out, to the stores. Any store, especially grocery stores, will be hit early. They'll be cleaned out. Your larger chains may just lock the doors because they don't have the manpower or the people to man the stores or the registers. I mean, hell, most registers don't even have a cashier anymore. Most of them are self-checkout. So at that point, those large corporate stores will be pretty much worthless, at least for actually buying stuff from them. Your mom and pop stores may accept cash for another day or two while they clean out their inventory and they get rid of the stuff that they can't keep cold anymore, right? Of course, if your power's down and you have no way to run a generator, maybe your generator was wiped out by the EMP as well, then you're not going to have any place to put that cold food. So you'll have to consume anything cold instantly, or before it spoils, let's put it that way. But yeah, there's going to be a massive run on banks, and I'm sure there'll be lines of people, probably thousands deep, waiting to get access to their money, and the bank will have locks on the doors, but that won't stop people from waiting or trying to break in to get their money. I mean, similar things have happened before. I can't remember if that was Iran or if that was Turkey, but some Middle Eastern country, their currency was so backwards and so upside down. People were actually robbing the bank to get their own money out, to withdraw their own money. Another thing that's going to be critical instantly for a lot of people will be medicine. So there are many people out there that are on, not only they have to have, this special medicine to keep them alive, but also there are people in their homes that are on machines, hooked up to the power grid. If that power grid fails and the people that are there don't have adequate battery power or solar power or generator power to keep those machines running, many of these people will die almost instantly. So I look to a lot of deaths to start piling up by the end of day 1. So let's move on to day 2. Day 2, Group A will certainly start to realize that this is not just a normal run-of-the-mill power outage. This is not maintenance. This is not a blown-up transformer. This is something, much more serious and much more long-lasting. And so then their panic is going to kick in at that point, and they're going to be going for the money, the food, the fuel, and the medicine. Pretty much all resources will be on the table at that point. And the 350 million, I think last time they did a census, it was actually 330 million, but, counting all the illegals that have come in, unchecked, it's probably somewhere around 350 million people here in the United States of America will suddenly all be fighting for a limited supply of resources. And you might say, well, hell, this is the land of milk and honey, the land of plenty. Well, it used to be back when we had a lot more mom and pop's farms and stuff like that. But now, because of the just-in-time food supply chain and the way our farms have all been corporatized over the years and taken over by, these huge conglomerates, people like Bill Gates, but not just him, it's Tyson, it's every brand that you go by at the store. They have, big corporate farms backing them up. It's no longer the mom and pop's farm that you can trade and barter with down the street. Those people are owned by corporations. And the people that run those farms have families at home somewhere else, off farm, off location in most cases. So do you think those farmers that are working for Monsanto or Tyson are going to show up to work when there's every system that we're aware of has broken down and their family is in serious danger? No one's going to go. Cops aren't going to show up. Firefighters aren't going to show up. A lot of the military is going to want to go home, even if they're, somewhere at, stationed on an Air Force base here in the United States of America. They're going to leave. They're going to go AWOL and go try to protect their families because they're going to know, they're going to see the writing on the wall. So an EMP especially, but to a large degree, a cyber attack as well, could instantly break down all of our institutions instantly. I mean, day 1, day 2, I look for those things to break down to the point where, again, no police are showing up. So what does that mean? When you call 911, you can't call 911. Your phone doesn't work anymore. But when you need to wave down a police officer or something, he's not going to be there. He's going to be protecting his own family, just the same as you would do. By the end of day 2, 90% of the stores will be cleaned out. Even the corporate stores that didn't allow sales to happen with cash, even stores like that, your big Walmarts, your, Targets, your large chain grocery stores and stuff like that, they will be cleaned out for sure. And your mom and pop stores will be cleaned out probably midday, day 2. Maybe the end of day 2. I'm not exactly sure on the time there, but they will definitely be cleaned out. Banks will probably be broken into. Police departments will be broken into. Any place where there is a store of ammo, weapons, things like that, food, water, all those sorts of things, those valuable resources, fuel, any place that you think might have a fuel storage or might have some food storage, like maybe your school cafeteria, places like that you might not be thinking about right off the top of your head, they will be cleaned out by day 2. Because when the prospect or when the idea of starvation comes home to roost, people freak the fuck out. And, modern Americans, very few of us have any experience with starvation, with actual starvation, because we have been living in the land of milk and honey for so long. And we've gotten lazy, we've gotten soft, we've allowed other people to come in and do everything for us. So when we fall, it's going to be a long way to the bottom, let's put it that way, and it's going to be a hard fall. Many of us won't make it through the fall. Hundreds of thousands of Americans by the end of day 2 will be killed fighting for the last of the limited resources in the stores and stuff like this. So we're not into the millions yet, but hundreds of thousands is my prediction by the end of day 1. And if we include in the people that died from running out of medicine, and I'm not saying that everyone's going to run out of medicine on day 1 or 2, but maybe there were some people that were just about to go get their prescription filled and then the power goes out. Well, if those people only have 1 or 2 pills left that are, life-sustaining pills, then they're probably going to die. So that's a big deal. Lots and lots. There's no way to really calculate the numbers of deaths accurately. That's why I said hundreds of thousands. It might be 100,000. It might be 500,000. I don't know. But a lot of people are going to die by the end of day 2. Day 3, I think people will begin to join or form their own tribes, their own groups, right? And I would argue that it's a good idea right now, before shit hits the fan, to, especially with your family, but also with your highly trusted friends, start forming a plan. Start forming, your own little survivalist group. That way, when this does go down, or if it goes down, you'll be ready. You'll be a step ahead, or 2 or 3 steps ahead of the other people. But yeah, they're going to get real tribal real quick. Because, there is strength in numbers. The people that are out there that think they're going to be able to survive lone wolf are delusional. I've thought about this before in the past. Luckily I'm married and my wife is in good health, and we're both in good health and everything, so we can look after each other to a degree. I would argue that would be the smallest group you'd be able to maintain. It's just not very likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not very likely that you're going to suddenly turn into Rambo after being spoiled here in the land of milk and honey, and you're going to go out there and just live on your own out in the wilderness, in the woods and stuff with, very little supplies, and you're just going to live off the land, right? For one thing, once these stores have been cleaned out, people are going to start hunting. Even people that have nothing to do with hunting now. They will kill every single tree rat, or squirrels as some people call them. They'll kill every single one of them. They'll kill every rat. They'll kill every mouse. They'll kill every cat, every dog, every horse that you see, everything that you can see out there. The field that has, 100 head of cattle in it. You get a group of city slickers in a tribe out there, they'll kill those cows and waste the meat because they don't know any better. It's really unfortunate, the situation that the United States finds itself in today, with people just being so ignorant on basic survival skills. You got to have them. Knowing how to, clean and process an animal, no matter what size it is. That should be something that honestly is taught in schools, but it's not, because we don't want to look at that sort of stuff anymore. We've gotten too soft. Population density is going to become a huge factor on your likelihood of survival. So I would argue that if you're in a very densely populated area like a city, your chances of survival are very low. And I think they will realize that fairly quickly. So city folk will be looking for an escape instantly. They're going to be looking for an escape. I have heard so many people, even on prepper channels here on YouTube, saying that, yeah, I'm in a city now, but when the shit hits the fan, I'm going up to the mountains. I'm going to live and survive up there in the mountains. Well, what they may not be thinking about is there are already families in those mountains that have been there for a long ass time and have actually been living off the land and hunting and surviving, and know the elements and know the, how to survive in the high altitude and stuff like this. They know how to get the resources already. And most of your mountain folks, they're going to have guns. Do you think they're just going to let you city people come in there? No. So there's going to be a massive clash as those city folk try to look for that, that place in the woods where they're going to bug out to the woods. Well, guess what? They may be bugging out to my woods, and I'm not going to allow them to come there. Certainly not if they have nothing to offer. And most city folk have little or nothing to offer. At least as far as 1850 survival skills, and that's what I'm looking for. post-collapse. Those are the kinds of people that I would be willing to bring into my group. People that have a highly valuable skill, like military, like doctors and nurses, dentists, things like that. Those are the kinds of people that would be allowed into the group. Now, some of those, doctors and nurses and dentists, they may come from the city. Some of the military people may come from the city, but that would be the exception. Most of the other people in the city, they're just going to drag your group down. So you don't want to bring people in that are not going to contribute, right? So I would only bring people into my group and expand my group with people that are like-minded, prepper-minded, survivalist-minded, have survival skills, and some other valuable skill to the group. That's the criteria. But yeah, I hear this all the time that, oh, well, when the shit hits the fan, I'm just going to bug out to the country. And again, I mean, have you been to the country? There's a farmhouse like every quarter mile or so in some places. Some places it's closer than that. But my point is that these people out there aren't going to give up their land so some city folks can come out there and squat on it. So city folk, you better get yourself out of the city now and get yourself into the rural areas, or at least more rural, like suburbs and stuff like this, where you'll have a better chance. But if you're in a highly densely populated area, your chance of survival is very low, in my opinion. The rural folk will be digging in. They're going to be digging trenches, putting up barricades, fortifying their land and their entrances and their homes and stuff like this. They're going to be bringing in people, that can handle a rifle and know how to hunt, know how to shoot. And they're not going to let these city people just walk up there willy-nilly and just, pitch a tent and just say, I'm here. Well, that's too bad, city boy. You should have figured that out before the shit hit the fan. But it's too late then. So, that's what I think will happen within 3 days. Everything will be gone. Or it won't be gone. It will be in the hands of the people that had the ability to go out and take it. Go out and get it. And there's going to be a lot of those, especially around your urban and suburban areas where groups like Negan off of The Walking Dead, people like that. Think of that. Those are the kinds of people that are out there in our society right now. And there's this thin veil of, civilization, I guess. It's law and order. We have this thin veil of law and order that keeps a lot of these people in check. When that's gone, they're going to be, in many cases, like Negan, they're going to be leading the group. And they're going to be some of the worst people you've ever even thought about. It would make Negan blush on the show, right? These people are going to be way worse. Cannibals and stuff like this. Now, I don't think cannibalism will happen after day 3. We're probably looking at, most people say about 2 weeks in to a massive collapse like this, cannibalism. But it's on the radar. It's coming. So, my best advice to you is if you're in the city, get the hell out while you still can, because it's just impossible for a population density like that to be able to survive. It's impossible. Everyone will consume the resources in and around the city probably within 3 days. Out in the country, you've got a little bit better chance, especially if you're set up as like a homesteader and you're a prepper and stuff like this. Maybe you've got some livestock. Maybe you've got some rabbits. Maybe you've got some quail, some chickens, some goats, different things like that, some hogs, some things that you could keep alive if you've got enough feed to keep them alive. Then you wouldn't need to refrigerate that. When you've got that hog out there on the pasture or in the mud pit over there, wallowing around, that means you don't have to refrigerate that hog. Or when you've got that old chicken out there, yeah, it's old and you're going to have to slow cook it and it's probably going to be tough. But when you're starving to death, you're not going to care about the texture. You're going to care about filling your belly up. So I suggest, I believe this is coming. I believe it's coming in 2024. There are many enemies out there, For one, China has the technology. Russia has the EMP technology. Iran might have the EMP technology. North Korea might have the EMP technology. And I think China would use their puppet, North Korea, to launch this attack. Now you might say, Why would China do that? The United States buys all their products and stuff, so they need our money. It's getting to where they need our money less and less. New trade deals are happening with the BRICS group and all this, that they're de-dollarizing their areas, right? The Chinese and the Russians, they're now trading in their own currency, not the petrodollar. So thanks to a lot of the politicians that have run us right down the crapper, this is a very likely scenario. And with Biden wagging the dog like he is, starting all these wars and being involved. Maybe he didn't start them, but he's involved, and he's getting the United States involved in all of these conflicts around the world. Our likelihood of this happening goes up and up and up and up. And there's one group of people out there who would love this more than anybody else. They're the globalists. They're the New World Order. They're the people like Klaus Schwab's with the Great Reset, and the people that have been working on the Agenda 21 2030 plan for decades now. And most people, when you talk about the Agenda 21 2030, their eyes glaze over because they don't want to hear it. They think it's conspiracy fluff. They think it's a conspiracy theory, which was a term weaponized by the United States CIA right after the John F. Kennedy assassination. It's a true story. So when you hear your media talking about conspiracy this or conspiracy theorist that, just know that that is something that they did. They created, they crafted this so that they could delegitimize any viewpoint from someone that disagreed with the mainstream narrative. They have run us right off the cliff, guys, and most people are unaware of it. So prepare yourself now while you still have a chance, while the lights are still on, while you can still do things that would give your family a better fighting chance to survive. You know, stack those beans and that rice up to the ceiling in your spare bedroom. Put it under the beds, whatever you have to do, stack it to the ceiling because you're going to need it. You're going to need way more than you think you're going to need, especially if it's an EMP, because we're talking, I mean, it could be years. It could be never that the grid is restored, because this is going to make the United States so vulnerable that it would be easy for China or Russia to, you know, put some troops out on the West Coast or something and just take over half the country or more than half, all the country. Who's going to put up a fight if the military men are home taking care of their families? Who's going to enforce law and order if the law enforcement officers are at home taking care of their families? Who's going to put out that fire next door? You better start thinking about taking care of yourself if you want to make it. Now, a lot of people say they don't want to make it. If the world goes that way, they just assume die. And they probably will. Especially if we're talking about thermonuclear warfare. I hear a lot of people saying that, you know, I don't want to live through that. And I get where they're coming from. But what if you do? You have to have a plan. A plan of, you know, a plan of attack is what it is, because it's going to be you and your family and your group versus the world. Be ready, guys. I think this is a big, big possibility. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it never happens, because you're going to see the worst of people. Maybe you'll see some instances of the best of people, but very few. It's mostly going to be the worst of people, because when you put starvation on the table, people dying from lack of medicine and stuff like this, then they'll do anything. They'll do anything to get what they think you have. Even if you don't have anything, they'll come and they'll try to take it anyway. And that at that point, when people are that desperate, that's when the cannibalism kicks in. So guys, let me know what you think about this. What do you think will happen after 3 days, 72 hours after an EMP or cyber attack? Let us know down in the comments. I like making these kinds of videos because my audience is great. You guys will come in there and you'll tell me 10 different things that I didn't even think of, and that's going to help me survive even longer after the shit hits the fan. We all know it's coming, so prepare yourselves now. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.